We are all familiar with these images from Africa, Asia, or South America. Severe poverty is, unfortunately, widespread in many parts of the world. But what if I told you that even here in Europe, there are places that are almost as bad as the largest slums in Brazil or Ghana? Today we're heading to Bulgaria, specifically to the city of Plovdiv, the country's second largest city. There you'll find the district of Stolipinovo, a slum so shocking it's hard to comprehend. We'll take you on a tour through one of Europe's poorest, and at the same time, most dangerous districts. When you enter Stolipinovo, a shocking scene unfolds. Old, completely dilapidated prefabricated buildings with peeling facades, the smell of garbage in the air and trash everywhere you look. The district appears as if a war had taken place there, and there has never been any reconstruction. In the morning, most residents get up early to search through trash on the streets of their neighborhood and the surrounding areas. Since no garbage collection has been available in Stolipinovo for a long time, trash has piled up on the streets. People hope to find recyclable materials they can sell to scrap dealers or junk traders, which will enable them to afford some food. One example is this 27-year-old Roma man who has never known a life other than that in Stolipinovo. He needs to scrape together about €23 a month to pay the rent for an apartment in one of the rundown blocks. To earn that amount, a lot of effort is needed in this slum. To wash themselves in the morning, most residents of Stolipinovo have to leave their homes. In fact, most drinking water pipes in the buildings have decayed, and the water, if it flows at all, is contaminated and cannot be used. Many houses lack a water supply altogether. This is partly because, as mentioned, the government has not taken care of Stolipinovo's infrastructure since the end of communism. But it's also because most of the buildings were illegally built by their residents. To access water, the approximately 45,000 residents of the district must use street hydrants. For their morning bathroom needs, many residents go somewhere behind piles of trash on unpaved streets instead of inside their homes. This is because most houses in the slum are not connected to the sewage system. Wastewater instead flows above ground through improvised channels, and you can imagine how unhygienic this is and how unpleasant the smell is, especially in warmer weather. The poor sanitary conditions also promote the spread of diseases. Sometimes there are hepatitis A outbreaks in Stolipinovo, for example. After getting up and taking care of their morning needs, residents have breakfast with their families. As with all meals, bread, potatoes and cabbage are mainly served, and there is rarely any variety. While the first rays of sunlight illuminate the dilapidated apartment blocks and adults collect trash or try to earn enough money for food through other means, children begin playing on the streets of Stolipinovo. In fact, most children spend the whole day outside because the living space inside is extremely cramped. Entire extended families live together in tiny spaces. For example, Sylvia, the young woman you see here, lives with her husband and 8 children in just 25 square meters. Thus, even though the streets are filthy, they offer space, freedom, and a change of scene. The children usually have the whole day free because only a few of them attend school despite mandatory education laws. On the one hand, education is not considered very important in many Roma families. On the other hand, children would face severe discrimination at school, which makes it more understandable why parents in Stolipinovo often don't send them. As you can tell, almost all residents of the district are Sinti and Roma, and this is actually intentional. A little over 100 years ago, a huge smallpox epidemic struck the area, a highly contagious disease they desperately wanted to contain. At the time, the government divided the entire city into 2 areas, one for the Sinti and Roma and another for the rest of the population. Even though the Sinti and Roma had little to do with the disease and were not even the main spreaders, they were isolated from the rest of the city, which led to the creation of Stolipinovo. However, the district wasn't always a slum. During the communist era, it actually flourished as there were jobs for all residents and several state enterprises had branches there. But the fall of the Soviet Union destroyed the district. Today, an unbelievable 90% of its residents are unemployed. However, this is not only due to their own attitudes. The Bulgarian state also bears significant blame, as the district has been completely neglected for decades. But as you can see, life must go on, and so the residents create their own daily routines. While Roma women traditionally take care of the household, the men try to earn a living during the day. Some run small shops in Stolypinovo selling sweets and cigarettes, for example. A few, over time and with considerable effort, have built actual shops with a wide range of goods, like the shopkeeper you see here. They are comparatively better off. For transportation, those with at least some money use horses and carts. Most, however, have to do everything on foot. Hardly anyone in the district owns a car. Some try their luck abroad, migrating to countries like Germany, where there are jobs and better living conditions. But most residents of Stolypinovo have somehow resigned themselves to their life of poverty and misery. As terrible as all this sound and indeed is, the residents of Stolypinovo still try not to despair and to make the best of their situation. Among Roma families, there is a strong sense of community, and residents often help one another in their daily lives. And not only that, despite their circumstances, they are also cheerful. On the streets, music is often played, people dance, cook together, and share their meals. When night falls, the residents return to their cramped, run-down apartments to sleep. Often there is no electric light or even electricity at all. And this is not only because many of the illegal buildings have no power supply. In fact, the government makes things unnecessarily difficult for residents. For example, in 2022, when many apartment owners failed to pay their electricity bills, the city administration cut off electricity to the entire Stolypinovo area. As a result, all residents were punished, even those who had paid their bills. This collective punishment was rightly condemned as illegal by many human rights organizations, and a court later ruled that the administration was not permitted to act in this manner. Cases like this clearly show how severely the Roma in Stolypinovo are discriminated against by the state. For many Bulgarians and even the government, Roma are considered second-class citizens, and they don't care if they have to live in misery. Although there is social assistance in Bulgaria, people in Stolypinovo are often denied it. And so it is, unfortunately, that the lives of Stolypinovo's residents are unlikely to improve anytime soon. For politicians, it is simply more convenient to leave the district to its fate. If you enjoyed this video about a day in the poorest neighborhood in Europe, leave a like and subscribe. Bye, and see you next time.